Welcome everyone back to a new and wonderful session with my favorite topics, female entrepreneurs.
That's true. Iida actually has the #1 podcast in Norway, in the Scandinavian region, Scandinavian languages, focused on Power Ladies. It's called Power Ladies. And what's the premise of that show?
So it's all about showcasing female role models, because I believe we have too few of that visible in the media. So I had to solve the problem myself, as probably a lot of founders or female founders as well figure out when they start their startup. So we have with us some amazing people, one high profile one, and then two female founders from the EU versus Virus Hackathon, which are also now a part of the Matchathon. So let's start with our first guest, which is Nora Khaldi, founder and CEO of acting CSO at Nuritas, and also World Economic Forum Young Global Leader. Yeah, a little bit complicated there, but why don't you start, Nora, by telling us what your company does and how you got there?
Yeah, Iorga, thanks again for the intro, and hi everyone. So I'm Nora. I'm by background a scientist and mathematician. So my journey started off with my love and passion for science. I've always been passionate about that area, always asking questions from the very beginning, and decided to do pure mathematics for my master's, a very theoretical area, but I always wanted to apply it to life science. So I was looking for an area that intersects between both. And I discovered the area of bioinformatics, so a lot of heavy words here. And bioinformatics brings together computational biology, so computer science and biology. And the goal is really to understand how we can use these technologies to accelerate the discovery of drugs or general health actives that you can actually extract from nature and improve human health. So I started off my journey that way. I did a PhD then in drug discovery and molecular evolution. And then after my PhD, I started working very heavily with industry and academia. I was very lucky to get a very large grant in the EU called the Marie Curie grant, which allowed me to travel around both Europe and the US and to learn from different labs and to learn the cutting edge science in terms of how can someone accelerate the way we actually discover new molecules that improve human health? Because currently it takes years, like 10, 15, 20 years, it takes billions to identify one. And the question is, what's wrong in the whole system and how can we fix it using computational biology? And this is where my background of data science, mathematics, computer science came in. And I noticed that these things were taking too long. There was a lot of random testing, but if we use technology, we could actually look into all the molecules in nature and find on computers the one that have the highest likelihood of making it through, so that we don't just randomly test, we actually fix and find the one or two that we think have potential on computers, and then we follow those through in the lab. And this is really what I've done a lot of my career. It's looking at very traditional areas that have followed a tradition of random discovery and trying to bring in new technologies into them, especially machine learning, artificial intelligence, to accelerate and to reduce the costs and time frame that it takes to find these molecules. And this is really my whole career, and this is how Nuritas came about. So really the story of Nuritas, I started Nuritas in 2014. A few things came together for me to start this. Initially, I noticed that people were more aware. Consumers currently are more aware of health. They are very well educated, and it's very hard, between brackets, to bullshit them. They're looking for molecules that can actually have true science behind, that can improve human health. So for me, it was, how do we get true science? How can we find these types of molecules and bring them to consumers faster? But also the drug industry was lacking a pipeline. Their pipeline is drier as we speak, and they were looking for new molecules. So the technology that I had developed was really important to developing Nuritas. And this is really the premises of Nuritas. We want to empower people to take control of their own health. And identify these incredible molecules are around us in nature that we haven't discovered so far because there's so many of them, and the techniques currently used are too traditional and too slow to find them.
This is so Yeah, this is so fascinating. I would like to have a whole podcast on only that. You know, it's just like, yeah, I admire you for that, being so hardcore into science. And that leads me to another question. Because not only as female founders, there is a very few of, but also in science, at least hardcore science, there are few women. So what are the challenges that you have met on your way to the top?
Yeah, so I didn't see them as challenges. I think I was brought up in a house where my brother and I were considered to be the same. So my parents treated us exactly the same way. They gave us the same chores, you know, they taught us the same way. So I never really saw the difference between both. And I really look at life in a way where it really is your work that speaks rather than your gender, your sex, or any background. So yes, I've been in situations where most of my life I've been the only woman in the room, both from a career perspective in pure mathematics into when I started my PhD, I was the only girl in doing my PhD as well. Most of them were guys. An entrepreneur in tech, same thing. I was the only woman in the room. And then in the board meetings, you know, same thing, only woman in the room. But I don't see that as a negative. I actually see it as a positive because we actually bring a lot. And I leave my work speak out. Yes, I've encountered, you know, some nasty comments along the way, but I just, they're not important. Most people, I think, are the smart people will actually judge on work rather than on background. And that's my really philosophy that I've worked with.
But have you found it hard to gain authority in a way, like for people to respect you? And
Yeah, well, initially it always starts, so depending, you go into a room and they never realize that, you know, you're the boss, or you're the founder, you're the creator, or, you know, but very quickly they realize it. It doesn't, you don't need to have to say it. The conversation, the understanding of the field, the domains, your background, it people will immediately realize, without actually having to scream it, that you're, you know, you're who you are and you're actually good at what you're doing, and they don't look at sex anymore or background.
no?
So
For
they,
that,
well, for me, most, yes. And if they do, I just discount it. It doesn't bother me, because if I leave that bother me, you know, it'll be super hard to push throughout, because it's so hard already to push a company forward and to go against the odds, but to add barriers that it just makes it a lot harder. So, you know, if someone is obnoxious, or I just don't talk to them anymore. I just decide not to, you know. That's how I continued my own career.
yeah. So if you were to give advice to some female founders who said they're really having a hard time of gaining authority or respect, or they just like meet so many challenges, what would you tell them?
I think believe in yourself. I think the biggest thing, I do this a lot, and I talk to women a lot around. And for me, the biggest thing when I first started Nuritas, and even now and throughout, you're told very often, oh, you need this type of person that can come in, usually a guy that can come in and has years of experience, that will know what to do, etc. But no one knows really what you're doing more than you. So believe your gut, believe in yourself. Yes, take advice, absolutely take advice, it's important, but choose the advice as well. Because if your gut, and if you believe that something has to be done a certain way, follow it, because no one else would know better than you. And that's exactly what I, again, followed throughout my career.
So,
Believe in yourself.
yes, believe me, it's a good one. It's a good one. What do you think are the main opportunities for female founders these days in the COVID-19 crisis and post-crisis?
Opportunities for women currently. I think we live in a world where historically, women are in the best situation ever historically. in history. I think there's a lot of opportunities for women in general now. I speak, for example, just in Ireland, because I'm based here at the moment. There's a lot of support for women, both from a grant perspective, from a support for entrepreneurship. If women want to be on a board or an executive committee and so forth, there's a lot of support here to get them there. So I think we're living in a society that now is becoming more and more supportive for women, which I really like. There'll be always problems. There's always that. That's part of life. But I think if we look at the whole history, we're in a very good situation. In terms of COVID, I think it's not. I don't see it from a women perspective, but I see it from a company perspective. There's always opportunities in these times in terms of using your own technology or your own background to help out during these periods. For example, we don't work on viruses. It wasn't our background at all. And what we saw as an opportunity is that the way the virus enters the cell is usually through peptide protein interaction or protein interaction. And the molecules we invent can actually interfere with those interactions. So we've put together a grant, and we have access to very large supercomputers, where now we can run a lot of these simulations to identify molecules, peptides specifically, that can actually interfere with the interaction. So there's always a way, but it's more, for me, it's more from an idea perspective rather than a gender perspective.
Yeah. So my last question to you is like, why is it so, or why do you think it's so important to have like gender diversity and diversity in general on founding teams and in startups?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's fundamental to have different ideas come together. And the biggest, people talk about personalization. The biggest, diversity between us in the world is gender. So, women and men. And the way we think is very different. What we want is different. And we need that kind of different view in a room. And I've always been a believer in that. And the same with backgrounds, so cultural backgrounds, exactly the same thing. We've lived through things and we've seen things in a very different way, and we've experienced different things. And all that brought together has a huge impact on how a problem is solved. So we, for example, at Nuritas, we're 50-50. And we are we have both an AI, so a lot of technical machine learning, computer science, and we have a lab as well, so biology. We're a 50-50 divide. We have some incredible coders, women coders. We have some incredible women in the lab as well. And so it's a 50-50 separation. But really that happened because what we were looking for are people that think differently. We weren't looking, we need to do 50-50 men and women. We were looking for who are going to come in, who's the person that can come in here and think in a completely different way. And the meetings we have are very similar. We have very different people sitting down in these meetings with different backgrounds, different gender. And it came up, and it's funny because we are 50-50 based on that wanting to create a team that thinks differently, that solves problems differently. And you can't have it just with one gender. It doesn't work. You have to have a complete divide and bringing in women at all levels of the company, from the executive to all levels.
Nora, thank you so much. And I might hit you up again to ask you if you want to take part in my podcast to talk about your profession. It's super interesting.
Yeah, no worries. Perfect. Looking forward to it. Bye.
Cool. And also we have one last question. We're going to come back to you. It's in the very end. Yeah. What is the lesson that you have learned throughout this COVID-19 crisis, either business-wise or personal? Yep. And now we will head over to our 2 female-led teams, which has been participating in the EU hackathon and also now in the matchathon. And we need more female founders. I think the statistics in Europe is 17% of all startups have female founders, and that's too little, don't you think, Matt?
I agree as well. I mean, I've been a VC and an angel investor in the past, and one of my dear friends set up a fund. There have been a few funds now initiated focusing on investing in and supporting female-led companies, right? One of them is Unconventional Ventures, for example.
Yeah, I'm an investor there.
You are an investor there as well, yeah. And that was a great network because they got a female-led or a group of investors, limited partners, to support with finances to invest in female-led companies. And also you and I, Uri and I, have been part of an initiative called She Invest. There's also Hun Investera, which is a bank here that set that kind of thing up. And one fact that stood out to me when I was hosting the event at the beginning of this year was that they said it's going to take 202 years. It was PwC saying this. I'm pretty sure it's right. 202 years till we really reach real and full global gender diversity in roles, in pay, and things like that, which is just like crazy that the world we live in, that, if I want to order something, I can get it within 2 hours thanks to Amazon Prime and 2-hour delivery, but we won't have any real gender diversity across nations, across countries, across the world for 202 years.
Yeah,
that's
it's
the
crazy.
figure they said.
Yeah, and another interesting fact that Unconventional Ventures, speaking of, they came up with a report that said that all the funding in Scandinavia, in total, only 1% to 2% went to female-led teams. How crazy is that?
It is crazy, and obviously there are 17% female-led teams, so obviously there's a big disparity there.
Yeah.
But let's go over to 2 female-led teams. I mean, the focus of this chat now is also just to talk about women leaders, female leaders during the crisis. So we have 2 female leaders we're going to chat to now. 2 of the teams that have come out of the EU versus virus hackathons and now Matchathon. They are female-led teams in a crisis. Let's have a chat. Let's jump over to Iida first and foremost. Iida Kambur from Hypanel. Hello, good afternoon, Iida.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Where are you coming in from?
Calling in from Haarlem, the Netherlands.
Haarlem, the Netherlands, not Haarlem, New York. But tell us about your product. What is your product, and how has it been created during this hackathon?
Hypanel is an idea that our team had during the hackathon. So we started a couple of weeks ago to join the hackathon, and we really went through all the challenges of EU versus virus and tried to think where can we really contribute with our skill set. And this one, the challenge we chose was new and resilient business models, where we wanted to find a way to help companies who struggle now with the crisis. And we chose the restaurant sector to start with, where, because of the social distancing, the restaurant's capacity is going to decrease drastically. They may lose 40-50% of their capacity because they have to have 1.5 meters or 2 meters between tables. That's just not going to be sustainable for them, especially after having been closed for a couple of months due to lockdowns in many places. So we came up with a solution. We brainstormed a bit, and we came up with a solution which is a partitioning wall, and it's also an air purifying unit, so it actually disinfects the air. So we believe it is better than social distancing. Social distancing just causes you to not be as close when someone sneezes on you, whereas our solution actually cleans the air in the restaurants, and that way restaurants can fit in more tables and have more clients and be profitable. So that's the idea we came up with.
And this came up only about 3 weeks ago, right? Yeah. During the hackathon.
Exactly. Yes. So we came up with the idea. We won the challenge, New and Resilient Business Models. So we got a small award from Santander. And
how much was that? What was the
award? That was 5,000 euros, and we've now spent it on building.
What did you spend it on? Yeah, fill us in. How did you allocate those funds? Apart from a big party, I hope. No.
Maybe later. But for now, we've spent it on building 2 prototypes of our product. Actually, I'm calling in from our kitchen. You can see the prototypes taking over our kitchen in the background.
Wow.
Yeah.
You built that in 3 weeks.
Well, we had a partner who helped us build this, and the team is me and my husband, who is an engineer. So he designed this all. He has experience in this kind of products from the past, and we're now testing it. So hopefully we'll get this on the market soon.
I hope you will. Maybe we can help you get there.
Yeah.
I just want to re-emphasize the point that Nora made, and as a rhetoric we get told a lot, the startup industry and the emphasis is always put on team, right? But what about the team? investors look for a complementary team, especially in the co-founding team. You want to have complementary skill sets, and that goes as far as gender diverse and language, you name it. But obviously the domains being skill-based diversity, right? And it sounds like your team was born out of that, right? It's your partner you mentioned. You two started. How have you gone on to continue to build your team? Have you added more people to it?
I think skill-based is really the key, as you said, and as Nora said, we really focused on what each of us does best. For now, we're a team of two. So my experience is in law and in business, and my partner's expertise is in technical. So we have divided those tasks, and that's why we were able to build a prototype so quickly and be able to accomplish everything in time. And going forward, we will be looking for growing the team based on what skills we need. So that would be, for example, expertise in production and so on. So we'll be really looking not if it's a female or a male, but rather what can they bring to the table, so that we can leave them that responsibility.
If you want to help Hypanel, write in the comments right now. This is a live recruitment process. We're going to make it happen. I love you for taking the initiative to write a comment. But I mean, jokes aside, if you're watching this today as we're going live, if you're watching this in a week, in a year, I'm serious, follow through, because again, we've learned that these live videos, these streams are somewhat connecting the audience, the participants, the non-participants
to investors.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I'm not sure if this is the right question to ask you, Iida, since you have perhaps only been a founder now for 3 weeks.
What's the plan? What's the big dream? Yeah. Come on, give us the facts and the figures. Let's grill you.
Yes, let's grill you. Yeah, but yeah, we can actually start with that question. Like, what's the plans now going forward for you?
Well, currently we're in validation phase. We don't want this to be mere decorations in restaurants. We want them to actually work and clean the air in the way that we can stop this disease, and we can also stop diseases in the future. So we really want it to work, and we want to demonstrate that with scientific proof. So that's our next step. And after that, we're hoping to get funding to actually launch the product and start selling these to restaurants, because the need is very urgent and very real.
Yes, for sure. So what are you hoping to get out of this matchathon, and how can the people who are now watching this live stream help you and your guy or your husband?
Well, we're currently looking for funding, of course. That's key to be able to launch quickly, because we'll need to do some investments in the beginning, initial investments. And secondly, we're looking for partners globally, because we will be able to do this here in the Netherlands, but we want this to have an impact globally. So we're hoping to connect with people around the world who are interested in launching this similar project in their region.
Thank you, Iida. We'll get back to you as well with your biggest lesson during the COVID-19.
I have an idea for you. Just came to me. In our last stream we just had, we spoke to Nicholas, who is part of the AB and InBev team. Now they manage products, they manage breweries, they have locations and things like that. He said they are looking in this matchathon for companies that are actually in that consumer space of restaurants and bars and things like that. So have you heard of Nicholas and AB InBev?
I have not yet, but I just wrote it down. I'll check it out after. Thank you.
You can book a meeting with him, put us down as a reference. He'll have coffee with you, I promise.
Awesome, thank you.
But really, I'm serious. Follow up on him. That'd be great. Thank you so much, Iida. And remember, we're going to come back to you just at the end of this with our question we ask everyone who takes part in our shows. We ask them, what has been your learning, both personal and professional, or just personal professional, from this last two and a half months now of COVID that we've experienced in Europe, and it can be, anything from spending time with your family to a business learning or lesson. We would love for you to share that. One word answer or a sentence answer, as short and concise as you can. Thank you, Iida. Let's shoot over to Anna, who is from Yellow Canary, one of the other teams. Hello, Anna.
Hello. Hi, Iria and Matt. Thank you for...
Hi. Yeah, you're welcome. We are, of course, wondering about, what is Yellow Canary?
Love the name.
Yeah, I love it too.
It is a platform that helps people assess their mental well-being, and then it allows them to get in contact with counselors and benefit from free counseling, because we found out, talking to our friends and our clients, that some people need more help than others to cope with this situation.
Sure, but why is that something you care about? Like, why did you choose to start this startup focusing on this topic?
Well, I'm a medical doctor as a training. So in a previous life, I trained to be a clinician. Then I decided I wanted to shift the industry. So I did an MBA in finance. Then I did a PhD in consumer neuroscience. So I've always been fascinated about the brain and how the brain works. Now we're using that in our business, in helping companies better understand their customers. So when we found ourselves locked down, and we're talking to clients and to friends, and we saw that people really needed help to get through this situation, we just decided, just like that, to use our platform and to adapt it to measuring mental health, and just offer it to people from different countries.
And how is it going? Is there anybody using it already, or like where are you in the process?
So we launched it right after the hackathon. So when the hackathon finished, we launched the full product. And since then, so it's been almost 1 month, we have around 3,000 users. And we are connecting them now to psychologists and counselors so that they can benefit from their help. And the number is increasing. So we initially launched it in Romanian and in English, so for Romania and for English-speaking people from Europe. And now we looked into analytics, and we saw people coming from US and Asia and different parts of the world.
So how did you form your team? Like, how many are you at the moment, and how did you find your teammates?
That was easy because we work with people from our company. So we're a group of companies that do consumer neuroscience, consulting, advertising, communication. So we assembled a team of people that wanted to work on this project. And mostly those that were free for the hackathon and they wanted to jump in the challenge. And it was so intense and so rewarding.
So what are your plans now? Where are you going forward? Where are you in 3 or 4 months with Yellow Canary?
So we want to take it to all European countries. We are looking now to sign partnerships with psychologists in Spain and Italy, and to translate the platform. We're also talking to the municipality from Amsterdam, because they were our sponsor in the hackathon, to take it to the Netherlands too. So we are working on expanding the platform to different countries. And we also want to take it to companies to offer it to their employees as a CSR action, just to help them go through this.
So for everyone watching now this live stream, how can we help you?
Just log into Yellow Canary, do the assessment, and spread the word, share it with your friends so that we can help as many people.
Yellowcanary.
It's yellow-canary.org.
yellow-canary.org. You know what? Do me a favor after this, Anna. Go and tag this in the comments below, just so people can find it. We'll make sure it gets upvoted. Same thing for Hypanel as well.
So last question, since this is all about female leadership and female startups, have you ever met or faced any challenges related to be a woman in your career?
When I started my first business, I was still in medical school, but I decided to shift the industries. So I started working in communication, and I was having an advertising agency. And I was meeting with customers that would be like double my age. I was 25, so I was meeting with marketing managers that would be maybe 50. And I was aware of the bias that people would have knowing that it's my company. So on the business card, I was just business development. I was not owner, founder, nothing, because I thought they were like large brands. So I thought they would not entrust their brands to me if they look at me as
oh my God.
So I did that. And then the company grew. I also grew, so I started to assume the role, to take my role. But as we are working with biases and understanding people's subconscious reactions, I am aware that there are a lot of biases, also about women in science, women in tech, women as leaders. I'm aware of those, and I hope that through my example, I can help people change their behavior.
Yeah, and what are your advice to women who face these type of challenges in their daily life, in their career?
Yeah, so my advice is to just go for it. I remember 3 years ago, I was reading a book called "Women Don't Ask" or something like that. Women Don't Ask, where it said that a guy would apply for a job if he was like 70% prepared, and a woman
Yeah.
would apply only if she was like 100% prepared. Why? Because women tend to take rejection personally, whereas guys, they just brush it off and say, well, they didn't, I'm too good for them, they didn't want me, that's it.
Yes.
So I decided to apply that mindset. I decided to change my perception, where not to take a loss personally, just to learn from it and move on. So my advice for women is, if you want to do something, just aim for that, prepare well, and if you fail, you try again.
I love it. Anna, thanks. We'll get back to you in a moment, but before that, we'll head over to you again, Nora. Have you been thinking about your lessons during this COVID-19 period, either business-wise or personal?
Yes, I'm back on. Yeah, so I've lived by one thing, and it's funny because before, when COVID kicked in, I gave a talk to the Nuritas team, and really I always say this, it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent. It is the one that's most adaptable. I think Charles Darwin really nailed it down, and I think when these crises come along, you just have to adapt, but you have to adapt really, really quickly. And what I found out, for example, we were launching a product next year, and the urgency is like, no, we need to launch it now. And we were going to launch our first few products actually starting next month. So I think adaptation is seeing opportunities, but also adapting really fast in terms of cutting certain things that aren't important and focusing on the most important things when these crises come along. It's a great opportunity as well to spend time at home. Working from home was incredible. I never knew we could do so much so much work from home. I've never been so focused, and I think the team is the same. And sometimes you wonder, do we actually need offices? But that's my conclusion. I leave it there.
Interesting. Thank you, Nora. Iida, over to you.
Yeah, to repeat what Nora said, I think it's amazing how much we can do from home, and that also made me think about all the commuting and travel we do, which may not all be necessary. And the impact on environment is, of course, huge now, we see during the crisis. So that's a big lesson. Also, the urgency of it all, I think that was a huge lesson, how quickly you can find silver linings or opportunities and react to those. I would have never thought we would be able to achieve as much as we have with the encouragement from this program in just 3 weeks. So it's been a lesson of how quickly you can get things done if you're really motivated.
Love it, Iida. Thank you. And Anna, back to you again.
Go ahead. So this is the probably the second major crisis we're going through, the one in 2018, 2008, 9. I was just starting my career then, so I don't remember too much. But what I learned from going through crisis is that you have to train your brain not to freeze. When we are when we are threatened, our first reaction is to freeze and to try to find a solution that would keep us safe. Yeah. And as we have not been faced with a similar threat, most of the people are just in a frozen mode and they don't do anything. So my challenge if we're talking beginning of March, I would say, well, it's something that's going to pass. It's just probably 1 month and we're going to go back to normal. Now I don't have the same perception anymore. So my challenge was to find opportunities in this crisis, and participating in the hackathon was one of them. It was just a decision that we took on the spot. We signed in and then we won. So this would not have happened if the crisis was not here. So I'm always looking at those stressful situations that we go through. I'm looking and trying twisting them on what's the opportunity there? How can you turn this into your advantage?
Yeah. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna and Iida and Nora. This has been a great chat. And before we head off, Matt, what are your experience with female leadership?
My experiences with female leadership. Now, I mean, the way I would look at that actually is to answer from this angle that the future of the innovation economy, the future of the startup industry, we've heard a lot of rhetorics on the show now about how there is going to be a business boom ensuing after this crisis, right? And I've also heard a lot of people mentioning that, you know, we're going to have to rebuild from the beginning, and that's a great opportunity to do so. So back to my point at the beginning of this conversation, that it's, you know, as I think it was a PwC report or someone like that at She conference in Oslo, Norway, that mentioned it's going to take 202 years to get us towards gender diversity in every aspect, right? But this crisis right now, allowing us to press the reset button, would allow us also to leapfrog in certain areas. So to answer your question earlier, I would challenge businesses that are being set up today to think about, you know, those complementary skill sets that Nora's mentioned, and also having a running thread around that means your team, right? That means not just having 3 business guys getting together and creating a company. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but also, you know, having that mindset that involving other skill sets, other genders, other, you name it, perspectives to the table when you're founding a company. And we see that in this hackathon, which has put a lot of, you know, multi-skilled people together and try to create ideas and then create companies on those ideas, matching them with organizations. That's what this weekend's about. I would see that there's a real opportunity right now to rebuild with the right foundation, right? By rebuilding with a thought that we should have a gender balanced team. Obviously based on skill sets first and foremost, but I think that's something to be bearing in mind. Is about having hiring in a way that is gender balanced, hiring in a way that is there's no bias involved, for example.
Yeah, but you're saying like skill set, like even just having another perspective is sort of a skill set.
Yeah, but it is. I mean, it is so true. Having a different opinion based on a different experience, based on a different gender, based on a different language, you name it, right? I'm getting very inspirational here, but
yeah, I love it. I know you don't like motivational.
No, I'm not a fan of motivational things.
Yeah, but you are a motivational talker. You are in a way.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
But I just think, you know, I'll be honest as well. Like being a man, and you know, it's a territory to be careful about, or tiptoeing around and what I say and how I say it. But it's something I want to say actually, which I think is, you know, a little bit I don't know, in the grey area, but. I'm from South Africa, and you know, 20 years ago they started something called the Black Empowerment Act, and what that was meant to do was to sort of try to help when businesses were created, that the board and the founders were balanced in ethnicity, right? And it was a great initiative and things like that where it was created. Yeah. Is it too far to say that when a business is created, there should be some gender balance in that?
I agree.
I don't know if that.
No, I agree completely.
I don't know. I feel like, isn't there a way?
It's necessary. You know, you're trying to reach a market where it's like 50% women and 50% men. If you don't have any women,
I'm just thought maybe isn't that a way we could do things?
Yes, I think so.
You know, and actually, just one point to that. You know, again, we saw this in the newspapers how a lot of the nations that are surviving the best, as in having the lowest, they flattened the curve the quickest, had the lowest death rates from COVID-19, were female-led, right? Finland, Norway, and you name it. There were a lot of nations that were female-led, and I don't know if that has to go with anything with female leadership. Well,
yeah.
But there was a funny narrative in there, and to say, look, something's right.
Empathy.
And then just to finish things off, I like to wrap things up at the end of these sessions and say thank you to our guests once again. There is a red thread that came out for me in this, which was, again, to Nora's point. It's not the fastest, it's not the smartest, it's the ones that adapt, looking for the opportunities. To your point, Anna, saying that you can, seeing this as an opportunity for all, not just women, not just for men, not just for him, her, for any other reason, but you know, there's a lot of hurdles to overcome at this time. I agree with you on that. But there's a collective herd solidarity. There's a collective herd, you know, immunity we get to get ourselves out of. You know, we can fall into a credit crisis and a financial crisis, but you know, I feel that if we get together and use this solidarity we find in the European Union, take that and scale that into an international perspective. We're not borders. We are one. We are one European unit, and we are one global unit. So for the last time, I guess I really hate inspirational speeches because I feel...
No, but you're so good at it. I love it, Matt. I love it.
Let's rebuild, and let's rebuild together.
Boom.
All right, everyone. She's rubbing off on me in all kinds of ways, huh? Thank you so much for watching. We're going to be back at exactly 4 p.m. What's the session at 4 p.m.?
Oh man, let me see. It's a successful story from idea to investment.
Okay.
I'm not sure of the guy that we have with us, but I know it's going to be a good one. All the speakers this weekend is amazing and top notch, and I recommend you to at least watch a few of them.
Yeah, we actually have Sean Kane, CEO and founder of F6, F6S, which is a platform, a digital platform which connects angel investors with startups and accelerators that run off that. We also have one of the community heroes from Project there, as well as Project Skyrocket Your Team. Oh, these are cool theme titles. So you don't want to miss that one at 4 p.m. on this channel. Thank you for watching, and I'm going to play us off. Dance it off with us. Don't forget to come back. And hey, don't forget to like and share if you enjoyed this. And thank you for watching. My name is Matt C. Smith, and this is...
Off the dial. See you in a little more than an hour.
See you then.